Sadness and outrage tonight after another school shooting in America.
Good afternoon, this is News 2, and we're following a breaking story today, a shooting at a high school in Littleton, Colorado.
There's word potentially multiple children have been killed. This happened at the Robb Elementary School in the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District.
2012 Colorado movie theater massacre.
7 bodies were discovered in Oklahoma.
2 mosques in Christchurch were targeted, the country's worst mass shooting ever.
Devin Patrick Kelley was born on February 12, 1991. He was raised in New Braunfels, Texas, about 35 miles from Sutherland Springs, and attended New Braunfels High School. At New Braunfels High, Kelley had a lengthy disciplinary record, which included 7 suspensions for falsifying records, insubordination, profanity, and a drug-related offense. One former high school classmate described him as an outcast but not a loner, who was popular among other outcasts. However, a martial arts instructor who taught Kelley during that time said Kelley signed up for his class because he was being bullied and that he did not fit in. Kelley graduated in 2009 with a 2.32 grade point average and a ranking of 260 out of 393 students in his class. A close friend from middle school through high school recalled, he wasn't always a psychopath though, and that over the years we all saw him change into something that he wasn't. After graduating, Kelley enlisted in the United States Air Force. He served in logistics readiness at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico from 2009 until 2014. He married in April 2011, and in October 2012, he was charged with assaulting his wife and fracturing his toddler stepson's skull. In response, Kelley made death threats against the superior officers who charged him, and he was caught sneaking firearms onto Holloman Air Force Base. Around that same time, he made threats of self-harm to a coworker. He was then admitted to Peak Behavioral Health Services, a mental health facility in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. In June 2012, Kelley escaped from Peak Behavioral Health Services, but was soon apprehended 10 miles away at a bus terminal in El Paso, Texas. The facility's director of military affairs later recalled that Kelley had stayed at the facility for several weeks, until he was brought to court-martial. While there, he had expressed a desire for some kind of retribution to his chain of command, and was discovered to have used computers to order weapons and tactical gear to a P.O. box in San Antonio. Kelley was brought before a general court-martial on 4 charges: assault on his wife, aggravated assault on his stepson, 2 charges of pointing a loaded gun at his wife, and 2 counts of threatening his wife with an unloaded gun. In November 2012, Kelley pleaded guilty to 2 counts of Article 128 under the Uniform Code of Military Justice for the assault of his wife and stepson. In return, the weapons charges were dropped. He was sentenced to 12 months of confinement and a reduction in rank to Airman Basic. He appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, but was unsuccessful. Kelley and his wife divorced during his confinement in October 2012. She was awarded the couple's only 4 household items of value: a television, an Xbox, a wedding ring, and a revolver. In an interview with Inside Edition, his ex-wife said she lived in constant fear of him, as their marriage was filled with abuse. He once threatened her at gunpoint over a speeding ticket, and later threatened to kill her and her entire family. He took that gun out, and he put it to my temple, and he told me, "Do you want to die? Do you want to die?" she said. In 2014, he was dismissed from the Air Force with a bad conduct discharge. After his release, Kelley returned to New Braunfels, where he lived in a converted barn at his parents' home. Shortly thereafter, he was investigated for sexual assault and rape, and for a physical assault of his then-girlfriend. A 2013 statement from the woman who accused Kelley of sexual assault detailed an alleged attack on her. A separate statement from Kelley's first wife said that Kelley had physically abused her during the marriage. The woman wrote, "For a whole year he slapped me, choked me, kicked me, waterboarded me, and held a gun to my head." The investigation ended without the filing of any charges. Mr. Kelley's only skirmishes in the local courts were traffic violations, and the case became inactive because the victim did not respond to 4 follow-up calls and messages from a sheriff's office detective. Despite all of these red flags, Kelley married his then-girlfriend on April 4th, 2014. The couple moved into a mobile home in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where he was charged in August 2014 for misdemeanor cruelty to animals after beating his malnourished husky. He was given a deferred sentence of probation and was ordered to pay restitution and other fees. The charge was dismissed in March 2016 after he completed the sentence. Kelley attended the First Baptist Church in Kingsville, Texas from May to June 2014 and volunteered as a helper for one day of vacation Bible school. Later on, he stopped volunteering at the summer Bible class and became vocally anti-religious. posting about atheism online. In social media posts, Kelley often tried to preach his atheism, describe people who believe in God as stupid, causing numerous former classmates to delete him on Facebook, and expressed an interest in church shootings. At the time of the shooting, Kelley was again living at his parents' property in New Braunfels. He reportedly lied about his background to pass a background check and obtain a license from the Texas Department of Public Safety as a security guard, and was a security worker at the Summit Vacation and RV Resort in New Braunfels. He had previously worked as an unarmed security guard at the Schlitterbahn Water Park and Resort in New Braunfels, but was fired after less than 6 weeks on the job. While he was working at the Summit Vacation and RV Resort, a family who encountered him commented on how creepy Kelley had seemed. One member described, "He seemed angry, he seemed annoyed by us, and he seemed like he wanted to exert some authority." On the night of October 31st, less than a week before the shooting, Kelley attended a festival at the First Baptist Church wearing all black. According to 2 parishioners who were at the festival, he acted so strangely that people had to keep an eye on him. Rod Green, a former law enforcement officer in Montana, said when he saw Kelley arrive in all black, he examined him closely to make sure he was not carrying a gun. The Greens both have licenses to carry handguns, and they are friends with Kelley's in-laws. If Kelley had been carrying a weapon, Green said, he would have escorted him away because of all the children there. Judy Green said she positioned herself to keep an eye on Kelley at all times. "There was something wrong with the picture," she said. "I was thinking forward, and that was what was scaring me." According to a former Air Force colleague who temporarily got reacquainted with him online, Kelley claimed he would buy dogs and other animals and use them for target practice. He also expressed his obsession with mass murders, including the Charleston church shooting, and joked about committing one himself. These comments prompted her to block him on Facebook. According to Kelley's estranged wife, she would sometimes attend First Baptist Church with her family. Maybe this was a contributing factor for him selecting the church as his target, or maybe it was just sheer coincidence. Unfortunately, we may never really know because like so many other mass shootings, Kelley left behind a small amount of information that is nearly impossible to understand. Also, prior to the shooting, he sent threatening text messages to his wife's mother. His wife and her mother were not at the church when the attack occurred, but unfortunately, his wife's grandmother was attending the service and would ultimately be killed by Kelley. In 2012, Kelley purchased 2 guns, a .38 caliber revolver and a 9mm Sig Sauer P250 pistol, from the HAFB base exchange. Kelley later purchased 4 more guns, including a 9mm Glock 19 pistol, a .22 caliber Ruger SR-22 pistol, a .357 Magnum revolver, and a Ruger AR-556 rifle at stores in Colorado and Texas between 2014 and 2017. He filled out the required ATF Form 4473 and falsely indicated that he did not have a disqualifying criminal history. In Texas, an FBI National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS, is required at the time of purchase for all firearms except for purchasers with a valid license to carry a handgun, and no license of any kind is required to purchase firearms under Texas state law. Kelley's general court-martial guilty plea should have made it illegal for him to own, buy, or possess a firearm or ammunition, and should have been flagged by NICS and prevented the purchase. Federal law prohibits those convicted of domestic violence, even if it is only a misdemeanor, from possessing firearms. However, the Air Force failed to relay the court-martial convictions to the FBI. In a statement admitting the oversight, the Air Force said, "Initial information indicates that Kelley's domestic violence offense was not entered into the National Crime Information Center database by the Holloman Air Force Base Office of Special Investigations." One day after the shooting, the Air Force said it had launched a review of how the service handled the criminal records of former airman Devin P. Kelley following his 2012 domestic violence conviction. 3 days after the shooting, Vice President Mike Pence visited the crime scene and said, "We will find why this information was not properly recorded in 2012, and we will work with leaders in Congress to ensure that this never happens again." According to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Kelley was denied a permit for a gun by the state of Texas and should not have legally been allowed to own a firearm. Mr. Abbott said it was important to ascertain how Kelley slipped through the crack in acquiring an assault rifle, given that he was a powder keg waiting to go off. Kelley's now deleted Facebook page featured a photo of what appeared to be an assault rifle and a Mark Twain quote, "I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born and had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it." On November 5th, 2017, a few minutes after 11 a.m., Kelley arrived in a white SUV at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs. Around 11:20 a.m., Kelley stepped out of the SUV, wearing black tactical gear, a ballistic vest, and a black face mask featuring a white skull, and wielding his illegally purchased Ruger AR-556 semi-automatic rifle. He approached the church from the right, opening fire on and killing 2 people outside the church, and continuing to aimlessly fire on the building itself. 60-year-old Brian Holcomb, an associate pastor, was walking up to lead the church in prayer when Kelley entered through a right side door. Holcomb was shot and killed. Kelley then yelled, "Everybody dies, motherfuckers!" as he proceeded up and down the center aisle shooting people at close range who were seated in the pews. A survivor inside the church told her son she could see Kelley's boots as he walked around shooting people. Police later found 15 empty 30-round magazines. Authorities stated Kelley fired approximately 700 rounds during the estimated 11-minute-long shooting. According to investigators, the shooting was captured on a camera set up at the back of the church to record regular services for uploading online. The footage shows Kelley methodically shooting the victims, pausing only to reload his rifle. Kelley was then confronted by and traded fire with Stephen Wilford, a local resident and former firearms instructor who was armed with a similar AR-15 style rifle. Wilford had taken cover behind a truck across the street from the church and shot Kelley twice, once in the leg and once in the upper left torso under his tactical gear. Kelley, who had dropped his rifle during the initial firefight with Wilford, fired back with a handgun before jumping in and fleeing in his Ford Explorer. Wilford fired one more round as Kelley sped off northbound. Wilford then noticed a pickup truck pulled up to the intersection of 4th St. and FM 539, driven by Johnny Langendorf. Wilford approached and entered Langendorf's truck on the passenger side. He opened my door and proceeded to get in and say, that guy just shot up the church. We've got to go follow him," the motorist, Johnny Langendorf, told Palacios. And I said, "Okay." They then pursued Kelley at high speeds for about 5 to 7 minutes. According to Langendorf, they drove at speeds up to 95 miles per hour. While chasing Kelley, the men called police dispatch to report the route and direction of the chase, assuming the police were headed toward the church. During the chase, Kelley called his wife and spoke to her and his parents, informing them, "I just shot up the Sutherland Springs church," and telling his father that he was injured and thought that he would not survive. Kelley reportedly repeatedly emphasized how sorry he was. Bleeding from his injuries, Kelley soon lost control of his vehicle, hitting a road sign before crossing a bar ditch at the Hartfield-Sandy Elm Road intersection, and finally stopping about 30 feet into the field on the opposite side. Wilford and Langendorf observed that he was motionless, and police took over the scene when they arrived. Police found Kelley dead in his car with 3 gunshot wounds, including a self-inflicted head wound. 2 of the illegally purchased handguns were found in the vehicle, the Glock 19 and the Ruger SR-22. 26 people were killed, and 22 others were injured. The dead comprised 10 women, 7 men, 7 girls, 1 boy, and a fetus. 23 died inside the church, 2 outside, and 1 in a hospital. The oldest victim was 77 years old. 1 victim was the 14-year-old daughter of church pastor Frank Pomeroy, who was elsewhere the day of the attack. Visiting pastor Brian Holcomb died with 8 family members, including an unborn grandchild. The injured victims were taken to Connolly Memorial Medical Center and Floresville University Hospital in San Antonio, and Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam Houston. In 2018, the family of a couple that was murdered in the shooting sued the U.S. Air Force and the Department of Defense, alleging they were negligent in reporting Kelley's criminal history, which would have prevented him from purchasing firearms. In 2021, a federal judge ruled that the federal government's negligence was mostly responsible for the shooting, and that it was jointly and severally liable for the damages that may be awarded. Damages were assessed by a federal judge at more than $230 million to survivors and victims' families. The shooting brought attention to gaps in reporting to the federal background check system intended to ban convicted domestic abusers, such as Kelley, from purchasing guns. Since 1996, the Lautenberg Amendment has prohibited the sale of firearms to those convicted of domestic abuse offenses, even misdemeanors, but gaps in reporting continue to exist. Donald Trump, who was the 45th President of the United States at the time of the shooting, said at a press conference in Tokyo, Japan, that, "I think that mental health is a problem here. Based on preliminary reports, this was a very deranged individual with a lot of problems over a very long period of time. We have a lot of mental health problems in our country, as do other countries. But this isn't a gun situation. We could go into it, but it's a little bit soon to go into it. Fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been as bad as it was. It would have been much worse."